Any job boards and age-friendly companies for older developers? I've spent last year interviewing only to find out that I'm considered too old. I'm 45, for most shops around. They won't spit it out directly of course, but people talk, and what they say is that I need to be stellar or young to be hired. Companies won't invest in me the slightest bit, so the moment I miss a question in the long interview process, I'm out of the door without second thought. So 1. I might be banging the wrong doors. For example, fangs don't seem to be right. Any companies that don't drink/sell the youth Kool-Aid. 2. I might be searching at the wrong job boards. Any suggestions welcome. 3. Finally, I might be better doing SDHLs altogether, but what? Rather than fighting a losing battle against preconceptions that run so deep. Anyway. Thanks for any non-insulting answers in advance. P.S. I'm based in EU, and I'm a SW dev working mainly in DevOps and reliability. My experience is anecdotal and second-hand. I've seen it twice now. It began with a friend who was in the job market as a 50+. More on the hardware side. This guy has some cool experience. He gets lots of interviews, they go well, but no offers. As his frustration grows, he grows desperate to try something different. He dyes some color back into his hair, gets some tinted glasses, and lets his daughter take him shopping for some more hip interview clothes. A month later and he's in bidding wars for who to hire him. He said the difference was night and day. He was now pointing out his age in interviews. Are you sure I'm not too old? And the interviewers were like, no way man. I wondered how one-off this was. A year or so later, knew another guy who was having this same struggle. We shared the story with him. He raised his eyebrows, hesitated for a week or two, colored his hair. Got his niece to take him shopping. And pretty much same thing. Obviously, this is a small sample set. But the lesson I took from this, and haven't had a chance to prove for myself yet, is that it's not your age that will limit you, but your apparent age. If you are old, but look like a younger/fresher version of yourself, you do well. If you appear old, you struggle. Best of luck. 100% agree, it's not the physical age so much as it's the perception of age, and all the framing/baggage that comes with it. Note, this also applies to personality. If you give off a grumpy old person vibe, or are far off the mark culture-wise, you're gonna have a rough time. Probably hard to tease apart, but I wonder if the dyeing your hair part matters as much as the dressing more hip part. Someone that looks like they're dressing well and have a sense of style is likely to innately have a better first impression than if you look like you're an extra in a sitcom. It'll help you stick out in people's minds, for better or worse, and shows at least some level of caring about the position. I'm a younger guy, but I know I try to pick my outfit carefully when going for an interview. I don't have a totally different interview wardrobe or anything, but I pay a little more attention to matching colors and generally looking more put together. You may not even need to get your kids to dress you, just find a friend your age who cares about fashion some to help. Even if you think you dress well, having someone else check you over or make small suggestions can help. With the corollary advice being a grey beard will protect you from accepting positions where looks might be more important than skills. No slight against your friends, if they needed the money they did what they had to do. But if one doesn't, there is nothing wrong with letting your beard guide you. Somewhere out there is a Lisp codebase just waiting for your love and attention. Funny to read this today. Last night I started reading the book Corporate Confidential Zero, which gives exactly the same advice. It's not bad to be old, but it's bad to be perceived as old. The book recommends what your friend did, go shopping for younger clothes. The book author recommends hiring a stylist every 5 years, and making sure you don't have grey hair. 0? I never thought about what I wore to interviews till a co-worker who was a decade younger than me who was a part of my interview at the company said she voted no on hiring me because of my douchebag interview outfit. For reference, my fashion sense is almost too fat for J. Crew. What should I do if not much hair is left to dye? Seriously, thanks for the anecdotes. I could imagine companies are a bit afraid of a grumpy old geezer having a bad influence on the company's work atmosphere. This may be less of a concern if they feel the person is trying to keep up with the younger people also for non-work related stuff. Had this happen as well? My ex, who had quite a sense of style, dressed me like Yahoo Serious or something for FB interview. Felt like a complete fraud, but they were clearly entranced by it. Not enough to offer me a livable wage in the BA, though. People are talking about clothes and hair, don't forget teeth. Get them whitened. I wasn't looking for a job, but I did it because being 50 plus, coffee drinker, you can tell a difference. And since I did it, I started noticing it in other people. A practical necessity if you're a smoker as well, and don't smell like smoke. Really, have a non-smoker smell you to check. That could explain it. I have no problem finding work, but I look young for my age. Wild hair, no grey except in my beard, and if I shave, I could easily be 15 years younger. It's weird that employers are so superficial. But maybe they're looking for someone flexible and energetic, and if you look too old, and give off old man vibes, they fear you may lack that energy. The age bias is real, but it may not be as big as the perception is. My current position is with a company that pushes the youth message very loudly, and for that reason, I ignored them until a recruiter convinced me to allow myself to be presented. During the first interview, I brought this up. The average age in the company was 28, so why would they want me? The answer surprised me. They wanted me because of my age, experiences, generalist, and wisdom. Lots of youthful, intelligent people are an asset, but so are a few veterans to provide perspective and keep a check on reality. You are just as likely to get rejected for a reason other than age, so you might as well just approach with enthusiasm any opportunity that interests you. If you don't show up to an interview angry about age discrimination, you're more likely to be accepted irrespective of your age. Lastly, remember that companies are made up of people, and people come with all sorts of mentalities. A few will indeed have a bias against people their parents' age, but I bet it's not as many people with that attitude as you might expect. The only place we really cannot compete with is on salary, unless you're willing to work at entry/mid-or rates. Experienced people generally cost a good bit more, and the value proposition may not be there for some candidates/situations. What's going to get you rejected as an older or experienced dev is whether you fall or don't fall for the typical recruitment cons and how well you play along with the usual interview game theory tactics, i.e., prisoner's dilemma scenarios. Last summer I interviewed at a ton of companies and truly I rejected them way before they rejected me, but what I learned essentially is that if you fall for the typical recruitment razzmatazz as a more experienced dev, then they'll assume you're stupid, and if you don't fall for it they'll assume you're too smart. If you catch my drift. Where once we were meant to show enthusiasm, now we're supposed to play cool. How many companies lead with "we're pretty casual around here," as if that doesn't actually mean we'll fire you on a dime. You have to tread a very fine line that shows you're willing to play dumb while at the same time showing you have the chops. It's more about how much cognitive dissonance or doublethink you can stomach than anything to do with your vital statistics, and all these technical interviews are bollocks compared to fourth-year courses in a world where most devs barely speak English, but I digress. I have literally seen everything in this industry from Y2K to working with distributed overseas teams to getting tattooed in San Francisco, and there's nothing new under the sun except for rife imposterism and rampant entitlement. They're sizing you up the same way you're sizing them up with respect to the developer stereotypes and management dramas and all that toxic crap, while testing you to see if you're willing to play along with their dysfunction and so-called culture fit, aka groupthink mentality. You can probably tell I have no love left for this lost generation of code monkeys, after having fathered them. Along with an entire generation of misfits and dreamers, whereas now they're all trying to fit in and losing themselves to the machine. Once they learn how to do adulting, maybe they'll learn to have more fun. Until then they're just a bunch of lemmings at the gate. I'd go further into this downward spiral, but I'll show myself out. Think about what you look like as a 60-year-old wearing hoodies and t-shirts and ask yourself whether you've made the right life choices. Cue the downvotes, you filthy scoundrels. I agree with this. I worked at a big company that leaned very young, but that was because we couldn't find enough senior engineers, not because we didn't want them. It's important to have experienced people who can guide the young and enthusiastic away from rediscovering the lessons that experienced devs know by heart. I've been programming since 1979. So long that programmer has become an integral part of my identity. I don't think I'll ever stop producing software. However, starting around 2016, finding work started to become difficult. The work I did find was no longer enjoyable. It took a few years, but I finally did enough self-introspection to realize, it's not them, it's me. I aged out of the industry. I didn't notice it in the moment, it just happened. I cannot work in OpenOffice fishbowls. I cannot stomach agile process and how it has turned something I love into menial factory work. NB, I get it, a vertical bar a Gillet shop is awesome. I only had such luck once. There are many more things about modern software development shops with which I disagree. Now, it hadn't occurred to me until later that this was showing through in my attitude. Of course, I really did not want to work on the 500th BBA. In my career with 6 Scrum Masters all demanding 30-minute meetings every morning. I did not want to write more JavaScript or deal with yet another hotness of the week library that does the same thing as the previous 10 such beasts. I did not want to play scheduled chicken yet again. Is it my age? Sure, people change. I'm not bored with the programming I enjoy, but I did grow bored of modern corporate software slave shops. Hey, more power to them. It's their shop, they can do what they want. However, it does mean I have to move on. I'm not saying any of this is true for the op. Just something to ponder if you're constantly facing rejection. I like that Gary Bernhardt tweets every once in a while something along the lines of, "We have no actual evidence that any software methodology actually leads to better, less buggy software. We have people falling all over themselves to sing the praises of XP, TDD, Agile/Scrum/ etc., and yet, we can't show software actually getting any better." I've been around long enough now to see these trends rise and fall. One thing remains constant though. Humans make errors. Humans try to find better ways to fix these errors, faster, more effectively. Humans like trying to notice patterns. It's a good thing. But trying to say any one of those patterns is more effective than another, is a hard sell. The result is always the same. The one lesson I wish all young developers could learn early: you will learn new information that will cause you to question yesterday's best practices. So quit holding on to what you know now as the one true way. Be willing to learn from people you consider old and irrelevant, they may actually know something. Damn, from personal experience I echo your feelings about modern SW development bullshit, and I'm 30 years old, though I ground my teeth on embedded SW, which is more conservative. I don't think I can make it to retirement at this rate. I share the same sentiment. I'm not even a greybeard yet, and I'm sick of the work culture/environment/processes. I'm in my late 30s, so I'm somewhere in the middle. I've been around long enough to recognize that older, more experienced people are incredibly valuable to learn from. They also have one thing you can't shortcut: perspective, and knowing where the bullshit is and how to avoid it. There's shit I'm just not willing to put up with anymore, that I would have been eager to do in my 20s. It wears you down. Greater than I cannot work in OpenOffice fishbowls. I cannot stomach agile process and how it has turned something I love into menial factory work. NB I get it, a vertical bar a Gillet shop is awesome. I only had such luck once. There are many more things about modern software development shops with which I disagree. I followed you in the mid-80s, and one thing that bugs me is the lack of geeks in coding these days. What used to be a passion you could make a career, is now a 9-to-5 shuffle for a lot of people. Seems like there's as many coders that are just in it for the money as there are stockbrokers. I guess that's to be expected with the growth of the industry over the years, but I still find it sad. Greater than, however, it does mean I have to move on. To what, though? I came to the same conclusions a few years back, but I'm at a loss as to what to do next. So I plug along, take what work I can find, shake my head and watch the exact same cycle happen to React as happened to Flex. I share a lot of the opinions of @Nibblesio. By a miracle, I have stayed employed well into my 50s, but I think I am reaching the end of my tolerance of conventional software development. You simply can't expect to remain employed as a programmer until the conventional retirement age. Especially for younger developers, financial independence and retire early, principles are essential to learn. Amen, brother. I had the same revelation, that things have simply changed and I'm not willing to change with it. It ain't worth it. I made my move at the beginning of the year to a new career, and while there are moments where I miss the cerebral joys of software, good riddance to the rest of it. Wishing you a bright future in whatever direction you go. I'm right there with you in my 40s. Not sure I was ever on board with the OpenOffice and the managerial mayhem. This has kept me in contract work and startups. The general stability is lower with the rare but occasional lull between projects, but my overall happiness with my work and career is extremely high. The question is, what are you moving to? This is the hardest part. I think a lot of people feel this way, but it's taking that next step. Is it sysadmin, or Zeus help you DevOps? Is it some kind of database work? The hard truth is development pays pretty well, or at least better than average. Finding something similar at middle age is a challenge. I retired a year ago, but before retiring in 2013 I was invited to work at Google on a knowledge graph project, and I don't feel like there was any age discrimination. In 2017 I interviewed at Capital One for a deep learning team manager job, which I got. And I never felt like there was any real age discrimination there either. So, try those two places. I did feel like I was the target for extreme age discrimination at Wikimedia Organization. All the phone interviews went great until one was a video call, and the interviewer literally started laughing when he saw me, and he quickly ended the call, and their HR immediately sent me a no thank you, thanks for applying email. The same thing happened at Electronic Arts about 15 years ago. They kept calling me with invites to come up to Vancouver for an interview. 3 of people, when they saw me and realized that I was in my 50s, they literally started to laugh. So, I would say to stick with quality companies and you will have better results. Wikimedia was also one of the worst interviews I've ever had, but it wasn't a video interview. They sent me a take-home test that needed to sort some files into different folders based on the file contents, and said it should take about 3 hours to complete, but it needed to scale to several million files. So I set a timer, and started working on it, and got a simple solution working, which ran using Docker so that I could package the dependencies. Some Ruby gems, the test's stock files, etc. I included a README that said simply Docker build and Docker run. At the 3-hour mark, I stopped iterating and sent the GitHub link. The recruiter called me the next day and said that the person who looked at the code said it didn't run. When he looked at it, it was the worst code they'd ever seen. I didn't use object-oriented design and didn't unit test it. What? A 3-hour script to sort. Some files should be properly structured with unit tests. and the examiner didn't know how to run Docker. Wow, I guess I dodged a bullet there. Maybe it's a Vancouver thing. I seldom experienced age discrimination when dealing with SV companies, but in my experience it is rampant in Vancouver. Last time I was job hunting I was 45 and I was also literally laughed out of a couple of offices. The ones who did not laugh, for the most part, ghosted me after the first in-person interview, when they saw my white hair. I had an interview once with a team that was all remote and the person on the other end had literally just crawled out of bed a few minutes earlier. I treat interviews as a two-way street, hence the word inter, and it definitely behooves both sides to be on best behavior. You'd think that an industry full of analysts and theorists would have understood the game theory of interviews by now. Greater than the interviewer literally started laughing when he saw me and he quickly ended the call. Wow. I have a hard time imagining being an interviewer and literally laughing at the face of a candidate before he even said anything. Unless he's dressed as a clown or something. No great advice other than to look for tech roles in non-tech companies. The FAANG gang will never see your resume or application as their automated screeners will silently reject you. Startups will advise you that you cannot possibly understand the complexity of the problem space they are solving because no one in the history of the industry has ever tried building complex software, which is why they are writing their own version of making 2-week sprints. I wish I had better advice, but after 7 years of trying I've moved on and out of the industry. Greater than the FAANG gang will never see your resume or application as their automated screeners will silently reject human interviewer at a FAANG company. I've interviewed plenty of candidates who were over 30, over 40, and never once seen anyone rejected based on age. I've worked with guys hired in their 40s, generally very solid devs. The key thing I have seen is that if you've been in the industry for 20 plus years, we expect you to be at a senior level. If decades of experience doesn't make you any better than a college grad, what have you been doing for 20 years? I'd love to have a senior dev with 20 years experience join my team. Same. Mid-40s. At a certain point, I just realized that no one seemed to want me anymore. I mean, I helped take 3 companies, with multiple complex software systems, to acquisitions. But, that just doesn't matter. At 39, I was hammered with job offers. But, now, I just get endless interviews. Luckily, I saved a lot. So, I'm able to do something new. But, a lot of my colleagues are on a sad and downward path. I really hope you youngsters are saving. Greater than startups will advise you that you cannot possibly understand the complexity of the problem space they are solving because no one in the history of the industry has ever tried building complex software, which is why they are writing their own version of making 2-week sprints. This describes every project here. Greater than startups will advise you that you cannot possibly understand the complexity of the problem space they are solving because no one in the history of the industry has ever tried building complex software, which is why they are writing their own version of making 2-week sprints. While this is indeed a sad state of affairs, your articulation of it made me laugh out loud. Thanks for that. I find myself biasing towards older devs. The old guys tend to trend towards reliable tech, reliable architectures. They're done playing around. They have families at home, so they want to get the work done. And go home. They do things that they know will work. They might not be using whatever the fad of the day is. And sometimes there are missed opportunities from that. But more often it means the stuff they build has less bullshit issues that comes from untested, immature technology. That said, older devs can be very stubborn. If in the interview I detect that I'm not going to be able to work well with the person, I might pass. I know you are trying to be kind, but what you are doing here is expressing ageist prejudices. You wouldn't, I hope, write something ascribing specific behaviors to all female devs, or Indian devs, right? So please don't do the same for older ones. I'm in my 40s and quite capable of getting caught up in the excitement over a new technology. On the other hand, I think I've matured out of the stubbornness I had in my 20s. I've met young developers who get so caught up in the mastery of their first tech stack that they aren't ready to go back to being a beginner again, and haven't seen enough ways of solving problems to recognize that what they think is the only right way to solve a problem could possibly have an alternative. If you're looking for use boring technology enthusiasts and people open to changing their mind, go out and interview and hire for those attributes, wherever you find them, but don't assume they're only going to be found in older developers. And if you're looking for someone to explore new technology, consider that an older dev might be just as enthusiastic as a junior, rather than assuming. Stubbornness is the killer. The young just don't have anything to be stubborn about, but for a manager, one greybeard who knows how to cause problems by digging their heels in will make your life hell. The fact that they are probably right just adds to the pain. 40 plus here. There is definitely unconscious ageism going on, and if you want to beat it, if you have 20 years of experience in the software industry, let's be real, you kinda need to be at a senior/lead level, whether IC or manager track. If you're not, then people are going to wonder why you aren't, and whether you're stuck reliving the old days. Decades of experience in C/Java is not going to work at a React shop. Either learn, and be opinionated about, frameworks built in the last 5 years, or stick to somewhere within your expertise. Don't make yourself appear ancient on your resume, but don't lie either. If you got a degree in the 90s, then it should be apparent from reading your resume, and if they want to discriminate, they'll do so right from the start and not waste your time. Avoid the grumpy old programmer stereotype at all costs. Instead, you want to be the badass wizard that people need to solve hard problems, and people want Gandalf, not Saruman. I think that last point is a lot of it. Even with people that have 10 years of experience or less, one of the big things that can stick out to me in an interview is if someone seems dogmatic or in a position where their word has been law for years. The last thing I want on a team is someone who's going to be a stick in the mud and behave poorly if the team or organization decides to do something in a way they don't agree with. Especially with a senior/principal engineer, I'm looking for someone who can make the case for our decisions as a team to the company at large, and speak with authority about it. However, that can't just involve them being a dictator to the team about how everything must be done in their favorite/preferred way. Are there people who only want to spend their lives doing the same thing every day? Decades of experience in C and Java ought to work just fine for someone who wants to try something new, like React. I learned React after decades of experience in other things, and I loved it. I don't see why it should matter what I did in the past. Was I successful? Did I enjoy it? Will I come to work every day energized and ready to work on new things? Those are the things that matter. Greater than avoid the grumpy old programmer stereotype at all costs. Instead, you want to be the badass wizard that people need to solve hard problems, and people want Gandalf, not Saruman. Fair enough. But that's kind of hard to show in an interview. My typical experience is that the first couple of months on a job, I'm soaking the whole place up, i.e., figuring out their unique accumulated horrors, and my bosses typically have no idea what I'm doing, and are thinking they made a mistake hiring me. Then suddenly, to them, I start becoming really productive, and in short order they realize I'm the guy who can solve the problems no one else can. Once had a boss cry when I turned in my notice. But how do you sell that? Not saying your situation isn't real, but this is more of a general reply to all of the comments. I am 45 and have had no trouble getting your standard enterprise senior engineer/lead/architect roles in a major metropolitan area on the east coast of the US. After staying at one company way too long when I was 34, I've been able to quickly get jobs at 34, 37, 40, 43, and 44 years old. Pre-COVID, There were a few conversations I had with managers of consulting firms for full-time roles as an overpriced enterprise architect, solutions architect, digital transformation consultant type jobs. I just wasn't in a position to travel for family reasons until my youngest graduated. Now, actually I am targeting the 3 major cloud providers for an SA-type position. I should be able to get into at least one of them according to my contacts. But another thing I've found about many older developers who scream ageism, is that they haven't stayed up to date on the latest trends and they haven't nurtured their network. Latest trends, not an issue for me. Nurturing my network though. I might be too arrogant or proud, but I think I have worked too hard to be dependent on my network for a job. I should be able to move to a nice job without any network push.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department. So please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.